Hey family, welcome to Mr. Gray Family, where every story begins with us. The day Trevor built his empire was the same day he lost his family. He just didn't know it yet. Trevor stood in his office, staring out over the skyline like a man who had finally reached the top of a mountain. Everything below him looked small, manageable, controlled, exactly how he liked it. His phone buzzed. He picked it up instantly. "Yes," he said. "Close it." A pause, then a faint smile. "Good. Send the final copy." "I'll sign." The call ended. Just like that, years of sacrifice turned into a single moment, the kind of moment people celebrate, the kind of moment people dream about. But something about it felt quiet, too quiet. Have you ever chased something so hard that you convinced yourself everything else could wait, that the people you loved would still be there when you finally turned around? Trevor placed the phone down slowly. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, sharp, composed, successful, but distant. A knock broke the silence. "Come in." His assistant stepped inside. "You have a meeting in 10 minutes. "Push it," Trevor said, without looking away from the window. She hesitated. "There's someone here to see you." "I'm not available." She said, "It's important." Trevor exhaled, slightly annoyed. "Name?" The assistant paused, and that pause changed everything. Erica. The name hit harder than any business deal ever could. Trevor didn't move, didn't respond, because that name didn't belong in this building, not in this life, not anymore. 3 years, no calls, no messages, no closure, just distance, the kind that feels permanent. Trevor finally turned. "Why is she here?" She insisted. A beat. "She's not alone." Trevor frowned. "What does that mean?" The assistant hesitated again, and Trevor felt something unfamiliar creep in. Not fear, not panic, but something close. She came with 2 children. Silence, not loud, not explosive, but heavy enough to shift everything. Trevor's jaw tightened. "How old?" "About 3. 3. The number didn't shock him immediately. It settled in, slow, precise, unavoidable. 3 years ago. Trevor looked away, trying to stay grounded, trying to stay logical, but logic was already slipping. "That doesn't mean anything," he said, but his voice didn't sound convinced, because deep down, something already knew. Before we go any further, if you're watching this, like and drop a comment below, because this story isn't just about success. It's about the choices that come with it, and trust me, you're going to want to stay till the end. Welcome to Mr. Gray Family, a storytelling universe built for people who crave meaning, emotion, and unforgettable narratives. Here, every story begins with a spark, and ends with a feeling you'll carry long after the video ends. Love, betrayal, family, secrets, lessons, it's all here, wrapped in immersive narration that makes you forget everything else. If you're searching for stories that pull your heart, challenge your mind, and keep you coming back, subscribe now. Your story begins the moment you choose to stay. Trevor adjusted his jacket, but it wasn't about appearance. It was instinct, a way to regain control, even though control was already slipping. "Where is she?" he asked. "Reception." He nodded once, then started walking. The hallway felt longer than usual. Every step carried weight. Not pressure from work, not expectations, something personal, something unfinished. Trevor turned the corner and saw her. Erica, standing there like time, had moved forward for her, but circled back for him. She looked stronger, not louder, not different in a dramatic way, just steady, like someone who had built something real. And then he saw them, a little boy, quiet, observing, a little girl, holding Erica's hand, calm, curious. Trevor stopped walking, because something inside him had already reached the truth before anyone said it out loud. The little girl tilted her head slightly, looking straight at him. No hesitation, no fear, just curiosity. And then she let go of Erica's hand, took a small step forward. Trevor's breath slowed. His mind didn't. The little boy followed her, standing just beside her, both of them looking at him like he was someone they were supposed to know. And that's when it happened. "Are you our dad?" The question didn't echo. It landed, direct, unfiltered, unavoidable. Trevor looked at Erica. She didn't rush to explain, didn't soften the moment, didn't step in to protect him from it. She just stood there, letting the truth exist on its own. And in that moment, everything Trevor built, everything he chose, everything he walked away from, came back all at once, not as a memory, but as a consequence. Newark, New Jersey never tried to impress anyone. It didn't need to. It was loud, alive, real in a way that didn't ask for permission. And for Erica, it was everything. Mornings in her neighborhood didn't start with silence. They started with movement. Car engines warming up, music playing from open windows, neighbors calling out to each other like family, even when they weren't. Life didn't wait for perfection here. It just kept going. Erica stepped out of her apartment building, adjusting her bag on her shoulder as she locked the door behind her. "Morning, Erica." Someone called from across the street. She smiled instantly. "Morning. You're up early today." "Bills don't sleep," the woman replied, laughing. Erica shook her head, still smiling as she kept walking. That was Newark. No filters, no pretending, just people showing up for life as it was. At 29, Erica had figured out something many people twice her age were still trying to understand. You don't need everything to feel full, you just need the right things. Her life wasn't built on luxury. It was built on connection. Sunday dinners that lasted longer than planned, friends who didn't need invitations, group chats that never stayed quiet, and laughter, even on the days that didn't give her much to laugh about. Later that afternoon, Erica sat at a small outdoor setup, helping arrange tables for a community event. Music played softly in the background. Kids ran past, chasing each other. Someone argued about which song should play next. It was messy, unstructured, perfect. "Erica, can you grab those flyers?" A voice called out. "Got it," she replied, already moving. She worked without hesitation. No complaints, no need for recognition, because this wasn't about attention. It was about belonging. Now, Trevor's world, that was something else entirely. His mornings didn't begin with noise. They began with silence, controlled, precise, everything scheduled down to the minute. His penthouse overlooked the city the same way his office did. From above, removed, untouchable. Trevor adjusted his tie as he walked into a meeting room filled with people who were all waiting on him, not because they respected him personally, but because of what he represented. Power, money, influence. "Let's begin," he said, taking his seat. No small talk, no distractions, just results. Every conversation had a purpose. Every decision had a cost. Every move was calculated. Where Erica's world was filled with voices, Trevor's was filled with expectations. Lunch meetings replaced actual meals. Conversations stayed professional. Even laughter felt measured. At one point, a colleague leaned forward and said, "This deal could push us into a different level entirely." Trevor didn't react emotionally. He just nodded. "Then we execute properly." That was how he lived. Forward, focused, always building, never pausing long enough to question what he might be leaving behind. Because, in Trevor's world, slowing down meant falling behind, and falling behind wasn't an option. But here's the thing about two completely different worlds. When they collide, something has to adjust. And sometimes, nothing does. That's where Erica and Trevor found themselves, standing in two realities that didn't quite fit together. One built on presence, the other built on progress. One valued moments, the other valued milestones. And at first, it didn't seem like a problem, because when feelings are strong enough, differences feel small. But time has a way of revealing what emotions try to ignore. Erica finished setting up the last table and stepped back, taking in everything around her. The music, the people, the energy. This was her world. Unpolished, but honest. Meanwhile, miles away, Trevor stood in another meeting, closing another deal, shaking another hand. Two lives, moving forward, at the same time, just not in the same direction. Do you prefer peace or pressure? Comment below, because sometimes the life you choose determines what you lose. It wasn't planned. There was no setup, no perfect timing, just a wrong turn. Trevor wasn't supposed to be in Newark that day. His driver had missed an exit, and instead of correcting it immediately, Trevor told him to keep going. "I'll walk from here," he said. The driver looked confused. "You sure?" Trevor nodded. "I need some air." That alone was unusual. Trevor didn't take walks. He moved with purpose, from one place to another, no space in between. But that day, something made him pause. He stepped out onto a street that didn't look like anything he was used to. No polished entrances, no quiet sidewalks, no controlled environment. Instead, music played from somewhere down the block. People stood outside talking like they had nowhere else to be. Cars passed slowly, not rushing. Trevor adjusted his watch slightly, taking it all in. He didn't look uncomfortable, just out of place. That's when Erica noticed him. She was carrying a small box of supplies toward the event setup. When she saw him standing there, still, observing, like he was trying to understand where he had landed, she walked a little closer, studying him for a second before speaking. "You lost." Trevor turned, slightly caught off guard. "Is it that obvious?" Erica smiled without hesitation. "Very." For a brief moment, that could have been it. A quick answer, a simple direction. Two people crossing paths for no reason at all. But Trevor didn't walk away. "I took a wrong turn," he admitted. Erica crossed her arms lightly. "Yeah, I can tell." There was no pressure in her tone, no attempt to impress, no curiosity about who he was, just honesty. Simple, direct. Trevor found himself doing something he didn't usually do. He stayed. "What's going on over there?" he asked, nodding toward the setup. "Community event," Erica replied. "Food, music, people actually talking to each other." Trevor raised an eyebrow slightly. "That sounds different." Erica laughed. "It is. You should try it." He hesitated, not because he didn't want to, but because it didn't fit his routine, and Trevor lived by routine. But something about the moment, about her, made the decision easier than it should have been. "All right," he said, "I'll take a look." That was the beginning. Not dramatic, not forced, just two people choosing to stay a little longer than they planned. At first, the conversation stayed simple. "Where are you from? What do you do? Why are you here?" But then, it shifted. Trevor asked questions that didn't feel rehearsed. "What keeps you here?" he asked at one point. Erica shrugged slightly. "People." That answer stayed with him, because in his world, people were part of the process, not the reason. When Erica asked what he did, Trevor didn't go into detail. "I run a company." She nodded. "Sounds stressful." No follow-up. No interest in numbers. No reaction. Trevor noticed that immediately. "You're not going to ask which one?" Erica shook her head. "Does it matter?" That caught him off guard. Because it always mattered. Everywhere else. But not here. Not with her. As the day went on, Trevor stayed longer than he intended. Then longer than that. He helped move tables, passed out flyers, even stayed for the music. At one point, Erica looked at him and said, "You're not what I expected." Trevor smiled slightly. "From someone who was lost?" She shook her head. "No, from someone who looks like you." There was no judgment in it, just observation. And for some reason, that made him feel more seen than anything else. Days turned into more conversations. Conversations turned into time spent together, and slowly, something formed, not rushed, not complicated, just real. Trevor found himself stepping outside of his routine more often, calling her, stopping by, listening more than he talked. And Erica? She noticed the effort, but also something else. There were moments, small ones, where Trevor seemed distant, not physically, but mentally, like a part of him was always somewhere else, handling something, thinking ahead, planning the next move. She didn't question it at first, because what they had felt good, easy, natural. But differences don't disappear. They wait. One evening, Erica invited Trevor to a family gathering. Nothing formal, just food, music, people being themselves. Trevor showed up, dressed like he always was, sharp, put together, and immediately, he stood out, not because anyone said it, But because he didn't blend in, someone asked him directly, "So what are your intentions with her?" Trevor paused, just for a second, but Erica noticed. She laughed it off, changed the subject, kept things moving. But something small had already shifted, because that hesitation said more than words ever could, and even though neither of them addressed it that night, it stayed, quiet, unspoken, waiting, because sometimes the beginning of something beautiful also carries the first signs of how it might break. At first, it didn't feel like a problem. Trevor still showed up, still called, still made time, but the difference was subtle, and that's what made it dangerous, because nothing broke all at once. It shifted. One evening, Erica sat across from Trevor at a quiet restaurant, the kind he preferred. Low noise, clean atmosphere, everything in its place. She watched him as he checked his phone briefly, then placed it face down, then picked it up again seconds later. "You expecting something important?" she asked. Trevor looked up. "Just work." Erica nodded slowly. "You say that like it's small." "It's not small," he replied. "It's necessary." That word stayed in the air longer than expected. Necessary. Erica leaned back slightly. "And what about this?" she asked, gesturing between them. Trevor didn't answer immediately, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't categorize things the same way. "This matters too," he said. Too. That was the difference. For Erica, this wasn't something added to life. It was part of life. For Trevor, it was something alongside everything else, and that difference was growing. Days passed, then weeks. Trevor's schedule tightened, not because he wanted distance, but because his world demanded more. Meetings ran longer, calls came in late, plans changed. "Hey, I might be late," he said one evening over the phone. Erica stood in her kitchen, looking at the clock. "You said that yesterday." "I know. This deal is just important," she finished for him. Silence. Trevor exhaled. "I'll make it up to you." Erica didn't respond right away, because she was starting to notice something. He always said that, but making it up was becoming another thing that didn't happen. Meanwhile, Trevor wasn't ignoring her, not intentionally. He just believed something else, that once things settled, he would have more time, that this phase was temporary, that she would understand. And, for a while, she did. But understanding has limits. One afternoon, Erica invited Trevor to another family gathering. "You coming this time?" she asked. Trevor paused, looking at his calendar. "I'll try." That word again. Try. What does that mean? Erica asked. "It means I have something that might run late. So that's a no." "No, it's not a no," Trevor said quickly. "It just means I can't promise." Erica went quiet, because promises were exactly what she needed. That evening, the gathering started without him. Music played, people laughed, food was passed around. And Erica? She kept checking her phone. Nothing. An hour passed. Then two. Finally, a message, still at work. "I'm sorry." Erica stared at the screen, not surprised, just tired. Later that night, Trevor called. "I know you're upset," he said. "I'm not upset," Erica replied. She wasn't raising her voice. That made it worse. "I just need you to understand where I am right now," Trevor continued. "And I need you to understand where I am too," she said. That stopped him, because for the first time, their worlds weren't just different. They were clashing. Trevor leaned back in his chair. "You know what I'm building," he said. "And you know what I'm asking," Erica replied. "Which is time." That word felt heavier than anything else in the conversation, because time was the one thing Trevor controlled carefully, and the one thing Erica felt she wasn't getting. "I'm doing this for us," Trevor said. Erica shook her head slightly. "You're doing this," she said slowly, "for something you haven't even reached yet." Trevor frowned. "That's how building works." "And what happens when you get there?" she asked. He didn't answer immediately, because he hadn't thought that far, not in that way. The silence stretched, and for the first time, it didn't feel comfortable. It felt like distance, the kind that doesn't show up loudly, but grows. Quietly. The shift didn't happen overnight. That would have been easier to understand, easier to confront. Instead, it happened in pieces. Small changes, shorter conversations, longer pauses. At first, Erica didn't say anything, because she was still hoping it would correct itself. "Hey, I'll call you back in a few minutes," Trevor said one afternoon. Erica smiled slightly. "Okay." She waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 30. Then an hour. No call. She looked at her phone again. Still nothing. By the time Trevor finally called back, it was late. "Sorry," he said. "Things got hectic." Erica leaned against the wall, phone pressed to her ear. "You said a few minutes." "I know." That was it. No explanation, no urgency. And that's when something started to change. Because it wasn't just about the call. It was about the pattern. Days turned into a rhythm Erica didn't recognize. Plans became, "We'll see." Time became, "I'll try." Conversations became shorter. "Are we still on for tonight?" Erica asked one evening. Trevor paused. "I might have to push it." "Push it to when?" "I'll let you know." That answer used to feel temporary. Now it felt final. Erica exhaled slowly. "Okay." But her voice didn't carry the same warmth anymore, and Trevor noticed. "You're pulling back," he said. Erica frowned slightly. "I'm adjusting." To what? To not expecting too much. That landed harder than she intended. Trevor sat up straighter. "That's not fair." "What's not fair?" she asked calmly. "You acting like I don't care." Erica shook her head. "I'm not saying you don't care." "Then what are you saying?" She hesitated. "Because the truth wasn't something you could soften. I'm saying it doesn't feel like I matter as much anymore." Silence. Trevor rubbed his forehead. "That's not true." "Then why does it feel that way?" she asked. He didn't answer immediately. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't have one. And that silence said more than anything else. Meanwhile, Trevor's world kept moving, meetings stacked back to back, decisions that required immediate attention, opportunities that couldn't wait. Every day demanded more, and Trevor gave it because that's who he was. But what he didn't see was what it was taking from somewhere else. One night, Erica sat at home, scrolling through old messages not to hold on, but to understand. There was a time when Trevor called just to hear her voice, when conversations didn't feel scheduled, when presence didn't feel limited. Now, everything felt measured, even silence. Her phone buzzed. "Trevor." She stared at the screen for a second before answering. "Hey," he said. "Hey, you good?" Erica paused. "I'm here." That answer was honest, but incomplete. Trevor leaned back in his chair. "I've just been busy." "I know. And this is temporary." Erica closed her eyes briefly. That word again. Temporary. "How long is temporary?" she asked. Trevor didn't respond right away, because that wasn't something he had defined. "It'll settle," he said finally. Erica nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see it, because she had heard that before, and each time, it stretched longer. "I just need you to be patient with me," Trevor added. Erica took a breath. "I have been." Her voice was calm, but there was weight behind it now. "How much longer do I have to be?" she asked. Trevor frowned. "That's not a fair question." "It is when I don't know where I stand," she replied. That stopped him, because for the first time, this wasn't about time. It was about certainty, and Erica didn't feel it anymore. The call ended shortly after, not with anger, not with resolution, just distance, the kind that doesn't announce itself, but grows, slowly, until one day, it's too big to ignore. If someone keeps choosing everything else over you, do you stay or walk away? Comment below, because sometimes the hardest part isn't leaving, it's realizing you've already been left behind. By the time it happened, there was no explosion, no raised voices, no dramatic ending, just a quiet moment that carried too much truth. Trevor sat in his living room, laptop open, eyes fixed on the screen. Numbers, charts, decisions waiting to be made. The door opened. Erica stepped inside. Slow, calm. She had been there before. Nothing about the space was unfamiliar. But something about the feeling was… Trevor didn't look up immediately. "Hey," he said, still typing. Erica didn't respond right away. She stood there for a second longer than usual. Then, Trevor, something in her tone made him stop. He looked up, and immediately, he knew this wasn't a normal conversation. Not because she looked upset, but because she didn't. Erica wasn't pacing, wasn't emotional, wasn't trying to explain anything before it started. She was clear, and that made it heavier. Trevor closed his laptop slowly. "What's wrong?" Erica took a few steps forward, not too close, just enough to be heard. "I need to ask you something," she said. Trevor nodded. "Okay." A brief silence. Then she asked, "If I wasn't in your life, would anything change for you?" The question didn't sound aggressive. It didn't sound emotional. It sounded real, and that's what made it hard. Trevor leaned back slightly, caught off guard. "Why would you ask that?" "Just answer it," Erica said. Her voice stayed steady. No pressure, no emotion guiding it, just truth waiting. Trevor hesitated, not because he didn't hear the question, but because he understood it, and he knew. There wasn't a simple answer. "Of course things would change," he said, but his tone didn't match the words. Erica noticed. "How?" she asked. Trevor paused again, searching, not for the truth, but for something that sounded right, and that pause said everything. Erica nodded slowly. That was her answer. "You don't have to explain it," she said quietly. Trevor leaned forward. "No, I do," but she shook her head. "No, you already did." Silence filled the room, not uncomfortable. Final. Trevor ran his hand over his face. "You know where I am right now," he said. Erica didn't interrupt. "This isn't easy. What I'm building, it takes everything." "I know," she replied. "And it's not forever," Trevor added quickly. That word again, not forever, temporary. Erica looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, she didn't see potential, didn't see what could be. She saw what was. "You keep saying that," she said. Trevor frowned. "Because it's true." Erica shook her head slightly. "No," she said. "It's not." That caught him off guard. "You're not choosing something temporary," she continued. "You're choosing what matters most to you." Trevor's expression hardened slightly. "That's not fair." "It is," Erica replied calmly, "because I needed to understand where I stand in your life." She paused. "And now I do." Trevor leaned forward. "You're making this sound like I don't care." Erica didn't react emotionally. "I'm not saying you don't care," she said. "I'm saying I'm not your priority." That word hit differently. Priority. Because Trevor knew. She wasn't wrong. "I'm doing this for our future," he said. And for a moment, he believed that would fix it. But Erica shook her head. "No," she said softly. "You're doing this for your future." Silence. That was the moment everything settled. Not escalated. Not broken loudly. Just decided. Trevor looked at her, searching for something to hold on to, something to keep this from ending. But he didn't find it, because the truth was already there. Clear. "I can't slow down right now," he said. There it was. No confusion, no mixed message, just a choice. And Erica accepted it, not with anger, not with resistance, but with understanding. She nodded once, then stepped back. "Then I won't slow you down." Trevor stood up slightly. "Erica." But she didn't stop, because there was nothing left to say. No argument to win, no point to prove, just a decision to respect and a boundary to keep. She walked toward the door, every step steady, every movement certain, not because it didn't hurt, but because staying would hurt more. Trevor watched her, not stopping her, not chasing her, just standing there, in the life he chose. And as Erica reached the door, she paused for a brief second, not to turn back, not to reconsider, just to breathe, because what she was walking away with was more than just a relationship ending. It was a future changing, a responsibility forming, a truth she hadn't spoken, and wouldn't, not now, because deep down, she already knew. Trevor had made his choice, and she refused to be something he fit into later. The door closed quietly behind her, and just like that, it was over. Not loudly, but permanently. Life didn't stop after that night. It moved forward the same way it always does, without waiting for anyone to catch up. For Trevor, nothing on the surface changed. If anything, everything improved. His company expanded faster than expected. The deal he had been working toward closed successfully, opening doors to new opportunities, new partnerships, and a level of influence that placed him far ahead of where he once aimed to be. His days became even more structured. Meetings filled his schedule from morning to night. Decisions carried more weight. Expectations grew, and Trevor met all of it without hesitation. He adapted quickly, just like he always had, because that was what he knew how to do. Move forward. There was no space in his routine to reflect on what he had left behind, not intentionally, but effectively. When Erica crossed his mind, and she did, more often than he admitted, he pushed the thought aside with the same discipline he applied to everything else. Not now. That was always the response. There would be time later. At least, that's what he told himself. Meanwhile, Erica's life changed in a way Trevor never saw. Not gradually, not in stages, but all at once. The moment she found out she was pregnant, everything shifted. Not just emotionally, practically, completely. Erica sat alone in her apartment, staring at the test in her hand, trying to process what it meant. There was no one else in the room, no one to share the moment with, no one to soften it. She took a slow breath and sat down, her mind racing through questions she didn't have answers to yet. What now? How? What does this mean for her life? Then came the second realization. It wasn't just one. The confirmation came later, in a quiet medical room where the doctor spoke calmly, explaining what she was seeing. 2 heartbeats. Erica didn't react immediately. She just listened, absorbed. Twins. The word felt heavy, but not overwhelming. Not because it was easy, but because she understood something clearly in that moment. There was no space for hesitation. Her life wasn't about what she had lost anymore. It was about what she was responsible for now. And through all of it, one decision stayed consistent. She did not call Trevor, not because she wanted to keep it from him out of spite, not because she thought he wouldn't care, but because she remembered that night. That conversation, that answer. I can't slow down right now. Erica didn't want her children to grow up feeling like they came second to something else. She wasn't willing to build their foundation on uncertainty. So she chose stability, even if it meant doing it alone. While Trevor's world expanded outward, Erica's world focused inward. Her days were no longer about freedom or flexibility. They were about preparation, planning, adjusting to a future she hadn't imagined, but accepted fully. Doctor visits replaced social time. Quiet evenings replaced gatherings. Her priorities shifted without resistance. And yet, there was no bitterness in her decision. She didn't spend her time blaming Trevor, didn't replay the past, looking for different outcomes, because in her mind, the situation was already clear. He made a choice, and she made hers. Months passed. Trevor stood in rooms filled with people who respected his success, people who listened when he spoke, people who valued what he brought to the table. He was building something that would last, something visible, something measurable. Meanwhile, Erica built something just as significant, something that didn't come with recognition, didn't come with applause, didn't come with validation from the outside, but it was real. Every decision she made now carried weight beyond herself. Every step forward wasn't just for her. It was for 2 lives growing quietly, steadily, depending on her completely. Trevor's success became more visible with time. Erica's strength became deeper. 2 lives, moving forward, but in completely different directions. Trevor built a future he could see. Erica prepared for a future he didn't even know existed, and the distance between those 2 realities grew wider with every passing day. By the time the twins arrived, Erica had already changed, not into someone new, but into someone stronger, more focused, more aware of what mattered and what didn't. The day she brought them home, her apartment felt different, smaller, full, no longer just hers. 2 small lives now depended on her for everything, and there was no adjustment period that made that easier. Lucas cried first, loud, unapologetic, demanding attention the moment he needed it. Maya was different, quieter, observant, even as a newborn. Erica noticed that early, not as a comparison, but as a reminder. They were two different individuals, two different personalities, and she had to learn both. The first few weeks were the hardest, not because she wasn't prepared, but because nothing truly prepares you for that level of responsibility. Sleep came in short moments, sometimes not at all. There were nights when both of them cried at the same time, moments where she stood in the middle of her apartment, holding one while trying to calm the other. Okay, I got you, she whispered, moving carefully, trying to balance everything at once. There was no one to pass them to, no one to take over, just her, and yet she didn't break. She adapted. She learned how to move with less sleep, how to think while exhausted, how to respond even when her body wanted to stop, because stopping wasn't an option. Mornings came early, whether she was ready or not. She fed them, changed them, held them, talked to them like they understood every word. You're okay, she would say softly, even on days when she wasn't sure she was. Time passed differently now, not measured by days or weeks, but by small milestones. The first time Lucas stayed quiet long enough to sleep through the night. The first time Maya smiled without being prompted. Moments that didn't seem big from the outside, but meant everything to Erica. Financially, things weren't easy. She had to adjust quickly, plan carefully, make decisions with precision. There was no room for mistakes. Every dollar had a purpose. Every expense mattered, but she handled it, not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency was what mattered most. There were moments when exhaustion caught up to her, times when she sat down, holding one of them, feeling the weight of everything at once, not regret, not frustration, just the reality of doing it alone. Still, she never reached for her phone to call Trevor, not once, because her decision hadn't changed. She remembered exactly why she made it, and every time things got difficult, she reminded herself again, this wasn't about pride. It was about stability, about building something her children could rely on. As the months turned into years, Lucas and Maya grew. Lucas became curious, always moving, always building something, even if it didn't last. Maya stayed closer, more aware, watching everything before stepping in. They balanced each other in a way Erica didn't expect, but appreciated deeply. And as they grew, so did her strength. Not in a visible way, not in something people praised, but in the quiet decisions she made every single day, showing up, providing, being present. There was no audience for it, no recognition, just responsibility. Meanwhile, Trevor continued building a life that moved at a completely different pace. Bigger meetings, higher stakes, greater visibility. From the outside, he had everything, but there was a part of his life, a significant part, that he had never seen. 2 children learning to speak, learning to walk, learning what love felt like through consistency and presence, and a mother who made sure they never felt like they were missing anything, not because it was easy, but because she made it that way. Erica didn't tell them stories filled with absence. She built their world around what was there, and what was there was enough, because love doesn't depend on perfection. It depends on presence, and Erica never failed to show up. 3 years passed, not slowly, not dramatically, just steadily. The way time moves when life keeps demanding your attention. Trevor didn't mark the time. He didn't sit and count the years since Erica walked away, but the distance was there, whether he acknowledged it or not. His world had reached a level most people only imagine. The company had grown beyond its original vision. His name carried weight in rooms he once had to work to enter. Decisions he made now affected people far beyond his immediate circle. Everything he had worked toward was real, yet something about it felt incomplete. It didn't interrupt his routine, didn't stop his progress. But in quiet moments, rare as they were, there was a sense that something had been left unresolved. Trevor never chased that feeling. He ignored it the same way he ignored anything that didn't align with his focus, until the day it refused to stay ignored. It started like any other afternoon. Trevor sat in his office reviewing documents, his attention fixed, his environment controlled. A knock came at the door. "Come in," His assistant stepped inside, holding a tablet. "You have a few minutes before your next meeting." Trevor didn't look up immediately. "Push it 10 minutes, he said. She didn't leave. That alone was enough to get his attention. Trevor looked up slightly. "What is it?" "There's someone here to see you." "I'm not available." "She said it's important." Trevor exhaled, already losing patience. "Then, schedule it." The assistant hesitated, and that hesitation shifted the moment. "She asked to see you today." Trevor's tone sharpened slightly. "Name?" A brief pause. "Erica." Everything stopped. Not the world outside, not the movement of the city, just him. The name didn't belong in his present. It belonged to something he had already moved past, or believed he had. Trevor sat still for a moment, processing, not emotionally, not visibly, but internally. There was movement. "Is she alone?" he asked. The assistant hesitated again. "No." Trevor's expression changed slightly. "What does that mean?" "She came with 2 children." The room felt different. Not smaller, not tense in a visible way, but heavier. Trevor leaned back slowly, the information settling in without fully forming into understanding. "How old?" he asked. "About 3. 3. The number stayed in his mind longer than expected, not because it surprised him immediately, but because it connected. Quietly, Trevor stood up, not rushed, not uncertain, but no longer in control the way he had been moments before. "Where is she?" he asked. "Reception." He nodded once and walked past her. The hallway felt longer than usual. Each step carried a weight that didn't come from pressure or expectation, something personal, something unfinished. Trevor reached the corner and slowed slightly before turning, and then he saw her, Erica, standing there with the same presence she always had, grounded, calm, unshaken. She hadn't come in hesitation. She hadn't come unsure. She stood like someone who had already lived through everything she needed to understand. Trevor stopped a few steps away. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. There was no tension in her expression, no visible emotion guiding the moment, just clarity. Trevor's eyes shifted, and that's when he saw them. A little boy standing close beside her, observing, quiet, and a little girl holding her hand, still, curious. Trevor didn't move, not because he was confused, but because something inside him had already begun to understand before the words were spoken. The little girl looked up at him. No hesitation, no uncertainty, just a simple curiosity that didn't carry the weight of the moment, the way it did for the adults. Trevor's gaze moved between them and Erica. Questions formed, but didn't come out, because the answer was already there, waiting. Erica met his eyes, steady, certain, and in that moment, everything that had been separate for 3 years was now standing in the same space, not as memory, not as possibility, but as reality. And Trevor realized this wasn't a visit. This was something he could no longer avoid. Trevor stood still, his eyes fixed on Erica, but his attention kept shifting back to the children beside her. The silence between them stretched, not because there was nothing to say, but because what needed to be said carried too much weight. Erica didn't rush the moment. She didn't soften it. She didn't try to ease him into understanding. She simply let the reality stand in front of him. Trevor's voice came out lower than usual. "Erica." She didn't let him continue. "They're yours." The words landed without force, but their impact was immediate. Trevor blinked once, then again, as if his mind needed time to catch up with what he had just heard. "What?" he asked, his voice quieter now. Erica didn't change her tone. "I found out I was pregnant after we ended things." She paused briefly, giving him just enough space to process. With twins, Trevor's body reacted before his thoughts could fully form. He stepped back slightly, his hand brushing against the edge of a nearby desk for balance before he sat down. The room didn't move. Nothing around him changed, but his sense of control did, completely. His eyes returned to the children, studying them in a way he hadn't allowed himself to before. Now he wasn't just seeing them. He was looking for something, a resemblance, a connection, something that confirmed what Erica had already said, and the more he looked, the harder it became to deny. His jaw tightened slightly as he tried to steady himself. "You're serious." Erica didn't respond with emotion. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. Trevor leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his hands pressing together as if holding on to something solid. How? He started, then stopped, realizing the question didn't matter, because the answer was already clear. Time, timing, a decision, and everything that followed. He ran his hand over his face slowly, exhaling in a way that felt heavier than anything he had dealt with in years. This wasn't a problem he could solve, not something he could negotiate, not something he could fix with a decision or a strategy. This was something that existed whether he was ready for it or not. Trevor looked up again, this time directly at the children. Lucas stood slightly closer to Erica, watching quietly, his eyes moving between Trevor and the room as if trying to understand the situation without fully grasping it. Maya stayed closer, her hands still near Erica, but her attention fixed on Trevor in a way that felt more direct, curious, uncertain, but not afraid. Trevor swallowed, his voice losing some of its firmness. There. 3? Erica nodded. Yes. The number hit him again, but this time it didn't settle slowly. It landed all at once. 3 years. 3 years of their lives. 3 years he wasn't part of. 3 years that had already happened without him. Trevor leaned back slightly, his mind trying to catch up with everything at once. This doesn't make sense, he said quietly, though it wasn't confusion speaking, it was the weight of realization. Erica didn't argue with him. She didn't try to explain beyond what was already clear, because there was nothing complicated about it. The situation was simple. The impact was not. Trevor stood up again, pacing once before stopping, his hands resting on his hips as he tried to regain control over his thoughts. But control wasn't coming back, not this time. He had built his entire life on staying ahead of everything, on anticipating outcomes, on making decisions that kept him in control of every situation. And yet, this was something he had never seen coming, not because it was impossible, but because he never allowed himself to consider it. Trevor looked at Erica again, his expression no longer composed. What does this mean? He asked. The question wasn't directed at logistics. It wasn't about plans or next steps. It was deeper than that. It was about everything he had missed, everything he didn't know, everything that now existed without his involvement. Erica met his gaze, steady as ever. It means they deserve to know who their father is. There was no accusation in her voice, no attempt to make him feel guilty, just truth, and that made it harder to ignore. Trevor's chest tightened slightly, the realization settling deeper with every second. This wasn't just about Erica anymore. It wasn't even about him. It was about them, Lucas and Maya. 2 lives that carried his name, his presence, his absence. Trevor looked at them again, and for the first time since the conversation started, he didn't see strangers. He saw something he couldn't step away from, and in that moment, everything he had built, everything he had prioritized, everything he had chosen, felt smaller than it ever had before. Trevor remained standing, but the energy in him had changed. The sharp control he carried into every room wasn't there anymore. In its place was something unfamiliar, something heavier, harder to manage. He looked at Erica again, searching her face for something that could make sense of what he was feeling. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. The question came out quickly, almost instinctively, not loud, not aggressive, but urgent, like he needed an answer that could give him back some ground. Erica didn't react immediately. She held his gaze for a moment, measuring the weight of his question before responding. Because when I asked you if I mattered, she said calmly, you already gave me your answer. The room went still again. Trevor's expression tightened slightly, not in anger, but in recognition. He remembered that moment. Not every word, but enough to understand exactly what she meant. That's not the same thing, he said, though his voice had lost its earlier certainty. It is, Erica replied, because I wasn't going to bring children into a situation where they felt like something you fit in when it was convenient. Trevor exhaled slowly, turning away for a second as he tried to process that. You should have told me, he said again, quieter now. Erica nodded slightly. Maybe. She didn't argue with him. She didn't defend herself. She simply acknowledged the possibility and left it there. That made it harder, because there was no resistance to push against, no conflict to win, just truth, sitting in front of him. Trevor looked back at the children. Lucas had shifted slightly, now standing a bit closer to Erica, still watching, still quiet. Maya, on the other hand, had taken a small step forward. Not far, just enough to show curiosity overcoming hesitation. Trevor noticed it immediately. His attention softened, just slightly. He crouched down, lowering himself to their level, not as a decision, but as a natural response. For a moment, he didn't speak. He just looked at them, trying to understand how something so important could exist without him ever knowing. Maya tilted her head slightly, studying him in return. "You look like me," she said simply. The statement wasn't emotional. It wasn't heavy. It was just an observation, but it hit harder than anything else had so far. Trevor let out a quiet breath, a small, almost uncertain smile forming before he could stop it. "Yeah," he said softly, "I guess I do." Lucas watched the exchange, then looked at Erica briefly before returning his attention to Trevor. There was no immediate connection, no sudden bond, just awareness, and that was enough. Trevor stood up slowly, his movements less certain than before. He turned back to Erica. "I didn't know," he said. It wasn't a defense. It wasn't an excuse. It was just the truth, as he understood it. "I know," Erica replied. That response didn't ease anything. If anything, it made it heavier, because it confirmed something he hadn't fully accepted yet, that this wasn't about intention, it was about consequence. Trevor ran his hand through his hair, pacing once before stopping again. "I would have—" he started, then stopped himself, because he didn't know how to finish that sentence. Would have what? Been there? Changed his decision? Handled it differently? He couldn't say it with certainty, and that realization stayed with him. Erica watched him carefully, not judging, not interrupting, just observing, because this moment wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about reality settling in. Trevor looked at her again, more grounded now, but not in control. "What happens now?" he asked. The question carried more than logistics. It carried responsibility, uncertainty, possibility. Erica didn't rush to answer. She looked down briefly at Lucas and Maya before speaking. "That depends on you," she said. Trevor frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "I'm not here to force anything," she explained. "I didn't come here asking for anything from you." She paused, then added, "But they deserve the truth." Trevor nodded slowly, absorbing that. There were no demands, no expectations placed directly on him, and somehow, that made it harder, because now the decision sat entirely with him. No pressure, no direction, just responsibility. Trevor looked at Lucas and Maya again, this time not searching for resemblance, but acknowledging presence. They weren't a question anymore. They were real, standing in front of him, waiting without even knowing what they were waiting for. Trevor took a breath, deeper this time, not steady, but intentional. He wasn't used to feeling unsure. He wasn't used to not having immediate answers, but this wasn't something he could approach the way he approached everything else. This required something different, something he hadn't practiced. He looked back at Erica. "I need to figure this out," he said. Erica nodded. "You should." There was no judgment in her response, no push, just agreement, because she had already done her part. She had carried the responsibility, built the foundation, made the hard decisions long before this moment. Now, it was his turn. Be honest. What would you do in his position? Because sometimes, the hardest part isn't finding out the truth. It's deciding what to do with it. The room didn't feel the same anymore. Not after everything that had been said. Not after everything that now existed between them. Trevor stood there, no longer trying to regain control in the way he normally would. This wasn't a situation he could organize, plan, or solve in a single decision. For the first time in a long time, he had to slow down. He looked at Erica, his expression more grounded now, less defensive, more aware of what was in front of him. "I want to be involved," he said. The words came out steady, but they carried weight, not as a promise he was trying to sell, but as a decision he was still learning how to stand in. Erica didn't respond immediately. She held his gaze, not searching for sincerity, not testing him, just taking in what he had said, because words, on their own, weren't enough. Not anymore. Trevor continued, more carefully this time. "I don't know how this works yet," he admitted, "but I'm not walking away from this." That mattered. not because it fixed anything instantly, but because it acknowledged something important. He understood what walking away looked like, and this time, he wasn't choosing it. Erica shifted slightly, adjusting her posture as she considered his words. "This isn't something you step into all at once," she said calmly. Trevor nodded. "I know. You don't get to show up when it's easy and disappear when it's not," she added. "I won't," he replied. This time, there was no hesitation. Erica glanced briefly at Lucas and Maya before looking back at Trevor. "They don't need promises," she said. "They need consistency." Trevor absorbed that without argument, because for the first time, he understood exactly what that meant. "I can do that," he said. Not confidently, not perfectly, but honestly. Erica studied him for a moment longer, not looking for perfection, not expecting certainty, just evaluating whether he understood what he was asking for. Then she nodded. "Okay," she said. That single word carried more meaning than anything else in the conversation. It wasn't approval. It wasn't trust. It was permission to begin. Trevor exhaled slowly, not in relief, but in recognition of what he had just stepped into. This wasn't something he could approach the way he approached everything else in his life. There were no shortcuts here, no way to accelerate the process. He looked down at Lucas and Maya again. This time, there was no distance in his expression, only awareness. "Can I spend some time with them?" he asked. The question was careful, measured, different from how he normally spoke. Erica didn't answer immediately. She wasn't making a quick decision. She was thinking, because this wasn't just about him. It was about them. "We'll take it one step at a time," she said. Trevor nodded. "That's fair." Lucas shifted slightly, looking up at Erica before glancing back at Trevor. There was curiosity there, not expectation, not attachment, just a quiet awareness of something new. Maya took a small step closer again, her attention still fixed on Trevor. "You're coming with us?" she asked. Trevor paused for a second, not because he didn't want to answer, but because he wanted to answer it right. "If that's okay with you," he said. Maya considered that for a moment, then gave a small nod, as if that was enough. That moment, simple as it was, meant more than Trevor expected, because it wasn't about acceptance. It was about possibility. Erica picked up her bag, preparing to leave. "We're heading home," she said. "You can come by later this week." Trevor nodded again. "I will." There was no overcommitment, no long explanation, just agreement. Because this wasn't something that would be built in one conversation. It would take time, repeated effort, consistency. Erica turned toward the door, Lucas and Maya moving with her naturally. This time, when she walked away, it didn't feel like an ending. Trevor stayed where he was, watching them go, not with regret alone, not with uncertainty alone, but with understanding. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about what he had lost. He was thinking about what he had the chance to build, and that changed everything, because this time, the choice wasn't between success and something else. It was about whether he could become someone different from who he had been. The door closed behind them. Trevor stood there for a moment longer before turning back toward his desk. The same desk, the same office, the same life, but none of it felt exactly the same anymore. Because now, there was something in his life that didn't fit into schedules, didn't wait for convenience, didn't adjust to his pace, and he would have to learn how to meet it where it was. Not later, not when things settled. Now, the first time Trevor showed up, it didn't feel natural, not because he didn't want to be there, but because he didn't know how to exist in a space that didn't follow structure. The park wasn't quiet. Children ran across open grass, laughter filling the air in ways that couldn't be controlled or predicted. Lucas was already moving ahead, focused on something in the distance. Maya stayed closer to Erica, her steps smaller, more observant. Trevor stood beside them for a moment, unsure where to place himself. In his world, every environment had rules, expectations, clear roles. Here, there was none of that. "You coming?" Erica asked, her tone neutral, not inviting, not distant. Trevor nodded and stepped forward. Lucas had already found something to do, crouched near a small structure, focused on stacking pieces of wood he had gathered. Trevor watched for a second before walking closer. "What are you building?" he asked. Lucas looked up briefly. A tower. Trevor crouched slightly, observing the uneven structure. It looks strong. Lucas shook his head. It fell before. Trevor nodded once. Then we build it better. Lucas didn't respond with excitement. He simply moved slightly to the side, giving Trevor space without saying anything. That was the first sign. Not acceptance, not rejection, just space. Trevor didn't rush it. He picked up a piece and placed it carefully, matching Lucas's pace instead of leading. Nearby, Maya watched, not directly involved, but paying attention. Erica noticed everything, not just what Trevor did, but how he did it. There was no performance in his actions, no attempt to impress, just effort. Time passed differently there, not measured by schedules, but by moments. Lucas's tower stood longer this time, not perfect, but stable enough for him to step back and look at it with quiet satisfaction. Trevor didn't praise him loudly, didn't turn it into a lesson. He simply said, "You fixed it." Lucas nodded once. That was enough. Maya stepped closer then, standing near Trevor without saying anything. He noticed her, but didn't force interaction, didn't rush to fill the silence. "You don't want to build?" he asked gently. Maya shook her head. "I like watching." Trevor gave a small nod. "That works too." She stayed beside him, still quiet, but closer than before. Erica sat on a nearby bench, observing, not interfering, not guiding, because this part, Trevor had to figure out on his own. Over the next few visits, nothing dramatic happened. No sudden bond, no instant connection, just repetition. Trevor showed up, again and again. Sometimes he arrived early, sometimes right on time, but never late. That mattered. Lucas started talking more, not about anything deep, just small things. What he was building, what he saw, what he wanted to try next. Trevor listened, fully, without checking his phone, without shifting his attention elsewhere. That was new. Maya started sitting closer, leaning slightly when she got tired, not asking for anything, but allowing proximity. Trevor adjusted to that too, carefully, without making it a moment. One afternoon, his phone rang while they were at the park. He glanced at it. A familiar number, important. A few weeks ago, he would have answered immediately, stepped away, handled it. This time, he turned the screen off. Lucas noticed. "You're not picking up?" Trevor shook his head. "I'm busy." Lucas looked at the tower they were working on, then back at Trevor. "This is busy?" Trevor nodded. "Yeah." Lucas accepted that without question, because for him, that made sense. But for Trevor, that moment meant something more. It wasn't about ignoring work. It was about choosing something else. And for the first time, that choice felt intentional. Erica watched from a distance, her expression unchanged, but her perspective shifted slightly, not into trust, not yet, but into recognition. Trevor wasn't saying anything different. He was doing something different, and that was the only thing that mattered, because presence was something you proved, not something you promised. The shift didn't announce itself. It didn't come with pressure. It came quietly, the same way opportunity always had in Trevor's life. It started with a call, one he almost didn't take. Trevor stood in his office, reviewing documents, his focus steady but no longer consuming him the way it used to. His phone rang. He glanced at it. A familiar number, important. This time, he answered. "Trevor," the voice on the other end began, confident and direct. "We've been waiting for the right moment to reach out." Trevor didn't respond immediately. He already knew what kind of conversation this was. "We're expanding," the voice continued. "International. This isn't just growth. It's positioning." Trevor leaned back slightly, listening. "We want you leading it." There it was. Not just another deal, not just another opportunity. Something bigger. The kind of move that defined careers. The kind of decision that separated success from something greater. A few months ago, there would have been no pause. "Yes," Trevor would have said without hesitation. But now, there was silence. "How demanding is it?" Trevor asked. Then, "It will require your full attention." Trevor's expression didn't change, but something inside him did. Travel, time, presence, not occasionally, consistently. It's not something you can manage halfway. the voice added. We need commitment. Trevor understood that language. He had lived by it, built his entire life around it. I'll think about it, he said. That alone was different. He ended the call and sat still for a moment, not rushing into the next task, not immediately analyzing numbers or outcomes. Instead, his mind went somewhere else. The park, Lucas adjusting his tower after it fell, Maya standing close without saying anything. Moments that didn't exist in his life before, moments that didn't fit into schedules or projections. Trevor leaned forward slightly, his hands resting together as he considered what was in front of him. Because this wasn't just an opportunity, it was a test, not of his ambition, but of his change. Later that evening, Trevor sat across from Erica. The setting was simple, quiet, neutral. I got an offer, he said. Erica didn't react immediately. What kind of offer? Expansion. International. She nodded once. That's big. Trevor watched her, paying attention not just to her words, but to what she didn't say. It would require more time, he added. Erica leaned back slightly. How much more? Trevor exhaled. Travel, long hours, less availability. Silence followed. Not uncomfortable. Familiar. Because they had been here before. Different situation. Same decision. Erica didn't interrupt. Didn't advise. She just listened. Trevor continued. More honestly this time. A few months ago, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. Erica met his eyes. But now, Trevor didn't answer immediately. Because this wasn't about saying the right thing. It was about understanding what he was choosing and what that choice meant. Erica spoke calmly. Just be clear about it. Trevor frowned slightly. Clear about what? What you're choosing, she said. Not what sounds right, not what feels good in the moment, but what's real. Trevor leaned back, processing that, because clarity left no room for excuses, no room for saying one thing and doing another, no room for calling something temporary when it wasn't. He looked down briefly, then back at her. This could change everything, he said. Erica nodded. It always does. That response didn't guide him, didn't push him in either direction. It placed the responsibility exactly where it belonged. On him. Later that night, Trevor sat alone in his penthouse. The same space, the same view, but it didn't feel the same. Because now, there was something else competing for his attention. Not work. Choice. He thought about what he had built. The years of discipline, the sacrifices, everything that brought him here. And then, he thought about what he had almost missed. Not in theory, not as an idea, but in reality. Lucas, Maya, moments he didn't get back, time he didn't experience. And the question became clear, not what he could gain, but what he could lose. Trevor leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his thoughts no longer moving in circles. Because, for the first time, the decision wasn't automatic. It required intention. It required honesty. And most of all, it required him to be different from who he had been before the opportunity was still there, waiting. But this time, it wasn't the only thing. The next morning, Trevor didn't rush. That alone was different. There was no immediate call returned, no instant decision made, no movement driven by habit. Instead, he sat in his office, the offer still open in front of him, waiting for the answer it had always received before. Yes, that had always been his response. Clear, direct, certain. But this time, Trevor didn't reach for his phone. He leaned back in his chair and let the silence sit. Not the empty kind he used to ignore, the kind that forced him to think without distraction. Because this decision wasn't about growth. It wasn't about money. It wasn't even about success. It was about pattern, and whether he was going to repeat it. Trevor stood up slowly and walked toward the window, looking out over the same city that had once defined everything for him. The same view, the same position, but a different perspective. Because now, he wasn't looking at what he could build. He was thinking about what he had already almost lost. Lucas, Maya, two lives that existed without him for years. Not because he couldn't be there, but because of the choices he made. And now, he had another choice. Trevor picked up his phone, paused for a moment, then made the call. The line connected quickly. I was expecting your answer, the voice said. Trevor didn't hesitate this time. I'm not taking it. There was silence on the other end. Not confusion, just surprise. That's not like you, the voice replied. Trevor nodded slightly, even though it couldn't be seen. I know. You understand what you're turning down? I do. Longer this time. This opportunity won't wait. Trevor's response came without hesitation. That's okay. And just like that, the decision was made, not forced, not rushed, chosen. Trevor ended the call and stood still for a moment. There was no immediate relief, no celebration, just clarity, because for the first time, he didn't feel like he had gained something. He felt like he had protected something. Later that day, Trevor showed up again. Same place, same time. The park. Lucas was already there, focused on something new, trying to build something more stable than before. Maya sat beside Erica, watching quietly, her attention shifting as Trevor approached. This time, there was no hesitation in his steps. Lucas looked up briefly. You came back. Trevor gave a small nod. I said I would. Lucas accepted that easily and returned to what he was doing. That was the difference. Consistency didn't need to be announced. It showed itself. Maya stood up slowly and walked toward Trevor, stopping close enough to look up at him without saying anything. Trevor didn't rush the moment. He just stayed, present. After a while, Lucas moved closer, showing Trevor what he had been working on. This one's stronger, he said. Trevor crouched beside him, examining it carefully. What changed? Lucas pointed. I fixed where it kept falling. Trevor nodded. Good adjustment. Lucas smiled slightly. Not big, but real. As the afternoon settled, Maya moved closer again, this time leaning slightly against Trevor without saying anything. Trevor felt it immediately. Not as pressure, but as trust. Something small, but significant. He adjusted slightly, making sure she was comfortable, careful not to make the moment feel different than it was. Erica watched from the bench, not with doubt, not with full trust, but with something in between, recognition. Because this wasn't words anymore, it was consistency. Later, as the day slowed down, Maya grew quiet. Her energy faded naturally, her head resting gently against Trevor's shoulder. Trevor looked down slightly. She had fallen asleep. He didn't move, didn't adjust suddenly. He just stayed still, careful, present. Across from him, Erica noticed, and for the first time, her expression softened, not completely, not instantly, but enough to show something had shifted, because this wasn't the Trevor she walked away from. This was someone who stayed, and that mattered. Trevor didn't say anything. He didn't need to, because in that moment, everything that needed to be understood already was not perfect, not finished, but real. And for the first time, that was enough. If this story made you think, like, share, and subscribe, because some choices we still have time to get right.